My daughter thought I was too frail, too forgetful, and too much trouble. Without a word, she shipped me off to a care facility, thinking I'd disappear quietly. But she underestimated me. I wasn't done, and soon she'd notice my comeback every time she looked out her window. My daughter thought I was too frail, too forgetful, and too much trouble to keep around. So, she shipped me off to a care facility, without a word of discussion, and claimed my home as her own, as if I'd already faded into the past. But I wasn't lost. I wasn't done. And while she thought I'd wither away in silence, I was sowing the seeds of something she'd notice every time she looked out her window. This is how I made her regret underestimating her mother. I raised my daughter, Lila, with hands that ached from sewing late, into the night, and a heart that never stopped giving. After my husband died, Lila was my anchor. I worked double shifts at the diner, my feet swollen, my back screaming, just to keep her in school. I sold my mother's pearl necklace to pay for her art classes. I never asked for gratitude. I thought love would circle back when I needed it most. When I tripped in the garden one spring morning, I brushed it off. Probably just tired, I thought. Dehydrated from tending the roses too long. Layla and her husband, Marcus, showed up that evening, their faces painted with worry. "Mama, we just want you to be safe," Lila said, her voice soft but practiced. Marcus nodded, clutching a thermos of tea they'd brought. They started asking about my bills, my insurance, my plans for the future. They said it was too hard for me to manage alone at my age. I didn't know they'd already consulted a real estate agent. I didn't know they told the neighbors I was forgetting things. I didn't know Marcus had already measured my living room for their new furniture. A week later, they invited me for a drive. "Let's get some fresh air," Lila said, smiling like she used to when she was little. I didn't pack a suitcase. I didn't bring my glasses or my favorite shawl. They drove me to a place with sterile, white walls and artificial lavender scent in the air. "Just a short stay," Marcus said, "to make sure you're okay." Lila squeezed my hand, her rings digging into my skin, and promised to visit soon. Then they left. The door clicked shut, and I was alone in a room with no pictures, no clock, just a narrow bed and a chair that creaked. I asked for a phone to call Lila. The nurse said, "Family visits are on Sundays." I said, "They just dropped me off." She showed me a form with my name, Lila's signature, and boxes checked for long-term care and diminished capacity. My own daughter had signed me away. I sat on that stiff bed, my hands clasped like I was praying, and I felt the world tilt. But I didn't cry. I shook, but I didn't break. The next day, I demanded to see the facility director. "There's been a mistake," I said. "I'm not ill. I'm not confused." She looked at me with pity, like I was a child insisting the sky was green. "Your daughter said you've been disoriented. We're here to help." I wanted to shout, but I held back. Shouting would only make them think they were right. So, I waited. I watched. I listened. On the third day, I got access to a phone. Lila's number went to voicemail. Marcus's too. I called again, blocked. My own daughter had blocked me. I sat by the window, watching residents shuffle through a courtyard. Some mumbling, some staring at nothing. Was this my future? After all I'd sacrificed? No. That night, I asked for a notebook, saying I wanted to write letters. The aide handed me a cheap composition book. I didn't write letters. I wrote names, dates, bank details, the title to my house, and the name of my old friend, Clara, a retired paralegal who'd always had my back. This wasn't a diary, it was a blueprint. They thought I wouldn't notice my accounts being drained. They thought I wouldn't see my name removed from the property taxes. They thought age had dulled my edges. But I'd raised a child alone, survived a flood that took half my belongings, and rebuilt my life from scraps. I wasn't done fighting. Clara answered my call on the second try. "Eleanor, is that you?" she asked, her voice sharp with concern. "Where are you?" I told her everything: Lila's betrayal, the forged documents, the facility. "I'm not staying here," I said, "and I'm not letting them take my home." Clara didn't hesitate. "I'm on my way." She arrived the next day, storming into the facility with a folder of legal papers and a glare that made the staff scatter. "You're not keeping her here," she told the director. "We'll sue for false imprisonment if you try." I felt my spine straighten for the first time in days. We went over everything. The power of attorney Lila had faked. The deed to my house still in my name. The savings account Lila thought I'd forgotten about. "You want to play hardball?" Clara asked. I smiled. "I want to rewrite the story." Within a week, Clara filed motions to void the fraudulent power of attorney. A doctor's evaluation confirmed I was sharp as ever, no memory lapses, no confusion. We opened a case against Lila and Marcus for financial abuse and fraud. We froze their access to my accounts. And on a rainy Tuesday, I walked out of that facility with nothing but a grocery bag of clothes Clara had brought me. Freedom tasted like wet pavement and coffee from a gas station cup. I didn't go back to my house. Not yet. Clara set me up in a small apartment downtown while we planned. Lily and Marcus didn't know I was out. That was the advantage. We filed for a forced sale of my property. Since they were living in a home they didn't own, I could legally evict them. The proceeds would be mine. I imagined them lounging in my sunroom, thinking they'd won, oblivious to the storm coming. The paperwork hit them on a Monday morning. Clara's process server said Marcus cursed, and Lila cried, slamming the door. I didn't need to see it. Knowing was enough. That night, my phone rang. Lila's voice was small. "Mama, what's this about selling the house?" I said, "You mean the house you stole?" Silence. "You locked me away, Li. You forged my name. You thought I wouldn't fight." She stammered, "We were trying to help." I cut her off. "You helped yourself. You have 30 days to leave." I hung up. Clara and I celebrated with takeout pizza in the apartment, laughing over old reruns of detective shows. The next day, we met a buyer, a single mother with 2 kids, looking for a fresh start. She loved the wraparound porch, the oak tree in the yard. "This house feels like it's waiting for a new story," she said. I nodded. It is. We closed the sale in 10 days. Lila and Marcus were gone by then, leaving behind a half-empty bottle of wine and a scrawled note. "You'll miss us when you're alone." I didn't. With the sale money, I did something Lila never expected. I bought the condo across the street from their new rental. A bright, airy place with a balcony overlooking their front yard. I paid cash, no loan. Clara handled the details. I didn't tell my granddaughter Sophie yet. This was my moment. The first day in my new home. I sat on the balcony with a glass of lemonade, wearing my favorite scarf. Lila stepped outside to water her plants and froze when she saw me. I waved, slow and deliberate. She turned and went inside. Marcus avoided the front yard entirely. I planted herbs on my balcony, basil, thyme, mint green against the grey city. Every morning I sipped coffee and waved at passers-by. I baked cookies for the new neighbours. I lived loudly, visibly, unapologetically. Sophie started visiting. She was 15, quiet but sharp. They said you were sick, she told me one day, sitting on my couch. They lied. I nodded. They did. She helped me tend the herbs, asked about her grandfather, about the life I'd lived before her. One evening she said, "Why'd you move so close?" I smiled. To remind them I'm still here. Lila and Marcus's marriage frayed. Their rental had a fair rent sign within months. Sophie said they fought constantly. Marcus wanted to stay. Lila wanted to flee. I didn't care. I was done carrying their weight. Sophie stayed with me most nights, learning to cook, laughing at my old vinyl records. One night she said, "You're not what they said you were." I hugged her. "I know, sweetheart." I rewrote my will. Sophie got the condo when she turned 18. The rest of my money went to a local women's shelter, funding legal aid for elders betrayed by family. Layla found out when Clara sent her a copy. She called, voice shaking. "You're cutting me out." I said, "You cut yourself out when you locked me away." That was our last conversation. Months later, their rental sat empty. Neighbors said Lila moved west, Marcus to a friend's couch. I didn't follow up. I was too busy painting again, bright canvases of gardens that never wilted. Sophie joined an art club, inspired by my sketches. The condo smelled of fresh bread and possibility. I'd been called a burden, but I became a beacon. And every morning, as I watered my herbs, I knew they tried to bury me. But I was a seed, and I was growing again.